Okay, thank you for coming. To our Coffee with Counselors session, we're going to be talking with you about stress management today. My name is Mrs. Shirk, and I am the sophomore counselor for Central and East.
And then my name is Mrs. Paranovic, and I am the counselor for freshmen in South and West Unit.
Stress management is a person's response to the types of external stimuli that trigger fight, flight, or freeze reactions. In other words, stress management is our body's stress response. Stress hormones are good. We need them to fight or flee from danger. Some stress-related damages could include, but are not limited to, complaints of stomach issues, anxiety, headaches, and lack of focus. Throughout this presentation, we will discuss best ways to manage stress.
So before we begin to talk about some of the tips and practical things to help you manage the stress, it's good to know some of the common sources that teens experience. Body image being one of those. There's no getting around it. Teens are going through physical changes. It can be easy to sit there and compare yourself to friends or peers, making that just seem very stressful and making fitting in feel difficult. School and social pressure as well, whether it's keeping up with grades or finding out what to do after graduation. School-related stress is very real for all of our students. Balancing workload, extracurriculars, social events, all that can be very hard. Some students also even feel overextended due to having too many activities. There's also that doing things outside of your comfort zone for the first time that can add to their worries. And then also with the world of social media, all of that comparing to everyone else is extremely hard too. Family sources, so that can be conflict, divorce, illness, financial hardships, all of that can cause stress as well. Teens also can voice that parents, not purposely, can sometimes add that added pressure or expectations on their teens too. But of course, this can be hard to talk about openly. Friendships as well. They can seem to be at the center of a teen's world, and often they struggle with the right way to respond to some of their friends' struggles. While it's important to learn how to support others, it can be hard to set boundaries as to how their hardships may be affecting their own lives too. And then romantic relationships, they can be stressful, confusing. First relationships, heartbreaks, self-doubt or lack of confidence can result. And many may feel added stress if they face questions about their gender identity or their sexual orientation as well. And then last but not least, major life events. It doesn't really matter what age you are. Things like illness, death, bullying, abuse, all of those things can have an impact on a teen's stress level as they try to figure out how to even express how they're feeling.
Okay, so now we're going to talk to you guys about some tips to work with your teens. According to Nationwide Children's, the average amount of teens that sleep that they get is between 7 and 7.25 hours of sleep. However, they say they need between 9 and 9.5 hours. Teenagers do not get sleep for a number of reasons, including a shift in sleep schedules. It's important to make sure your teen is getting a consistent sleep routine no matter how hectic life is. Making sure they are getting regular exercise, a healthy, balanced diet, and avoiding as much caffeine as possible is key. Too much caffeine can lead to increased levels of anxiety.
So some further stress management tips. We hope to be able to provide you with some things that we're either talking about or doing with teens here at school every day. So teaching assertive communication and self-advocacy is something we try to do a lot. Being too passive or too aggressive in a conversation can cause extra stress. So teaching teens to use their words appropriately but firmly is important. A great tool that we often try to use with students is I statements. So, for example, we might see students dealing with peer conflicts and how to best respond, not to respond in a way that's going to fuel an argument. So an I statement example could be, I feel hurt when you forget to call or text because I care about our friendship and it feels like you don't. So something like that, so they're heard in a firm, respectful manner. And then also, role-playing is a really great technique. So discussing, this might not be the first conflict they've ever had, so discussing things they've already encountered and what they found was helpful. How did you handle a previous stressful situation is a good question to kind of help guide their decision-making.
Showing support and acknowledging both big and small successes is key. A small victory to a student may feel like a huge accomplishment to them. Try not to push too much for perfection. Teachers ask for you to be involved, but at the same time, it's important to teach responsibility and independence. Monitoring grades daily can be stressful for teens. Fixating on each individual assignment can be overwhelming for parents and students as well. It doesn't allow them to have a bad day, and we all have bad days. Checking 1 to 2 times a week could be better. It's important to help your teen find positives while still learning from their mistakes. Relaxation techniques have been shown to be helpful for teens. Some of these can include, but are not limited to, yoga, regressive muscle relaxation by tensing and releasing the muscles, imagery, and so on.
Okay, so how you can help. Listening carefully to your child and using your own active listening skills. Teens always say they just want to be heard and feel understood. As counselors, we will sometimes hear students wanting their parents just to take the time to listen rather than immediately try to problem solve. Also, encouraging participation in school activities. This involvement should be in moderation. Sometimes we'll hear too many activities can be overwhelming. However, participation in school activities reaps really a lot of benefits, including promoting a sense of belonging, which will ultimately have a positive impact on their well-being.
Okay, some other ways you can help. Learn and model specific coping skills or tools that your child could use to manage stress. One deep breathing exercise could be breathing in and out colors, such as breathing in a color that's calm and breathing out a color associated with stress. Another example is box breathing. That is, when you inhale for a count of 5, hold for a count of 5, and then exhale for a count of 5, repeating twice. With school projects, breaking down and completing one task at a time can also be helpful. Oftentimes with students, we find grounding techniques useful as well. One example of that is the 5-4-3-2-1 technique. That is when we have a student point out 5 things they see, 4 things they hear, 3 things they feel, 2 things they smell, and 1 thing they taste. This encourages students to get back to the present. And finally, stepping away from work for short breaks while at home or work or school can allow them to reset.
Okay, how you can help further. Monitor. It's really important to take note in any changes in behavior, especially if your child is no longer enjoying the things they once did, their usual hobbies, or if they're beginning to appear withdrawn. And then also encouraging open communication. Sometimes when I ask students, who are your go-to people, and they'll list 12 friends. So it's important that they not only have those friends, but also those trusted adults that they feel comfortable with too. So being proactive and talking openly about stressors, that way it can prevent future buildup. And then positive self-talk we'll get into a little bit more on the next slide, but showing teens how to reframe stress in a positive mindset is a great behavior to model. It's good for them to be able to reflect on how their stress is impacting their thoughts and their feelings.
Help your child become aware of these negative thoughts and feelings and how to replace it with positive thoughts. For example, if your child is about to take a test and says, "I'm going to fail," it's important to reframe that into a positive and have them acknowledge the hard work they have put into studying. Negative thoughts are often subconscious and inadvertently lead to stress. Ask your child to stop, take a deep breath, consider negative consequences realistically. Their worries can often be exaggerated. Help them see things realistically and the things they have done well that will promote their own use of self-positive talk.
Okay, setting your child up for success. It can be really hard as a parent to stay on top of everything that is, social media app-wise that a teen is experiencing, but trying to be aware of some of the current trends and habits is beneficial. Excessive media consumption can play a role in lack of sleep, eating habits, and academic success. And then poor social media choices can also lead to undue stress. So knowing some of those apps that can that your kids may be using. So, for example, one current app I've heard students talk about is called YOLO. It's connected through Snapchat. It's like an anonymous commenting app. So, really, any apps with this anonymous commenting feature is a recipe for disaster, for lack of a better word. So, trying to be aware of some of those trends and things that are going on to help your students manage that. And then video games, computer games can all impact stress levels and healthy habits. Often a tool we try to use with teens to help them understand their stress and time management could be to have them chart their daily time use, so sitting down and saying from 3 p.m. on and just kind of looking at every hour of what they're doing. It helps them see how they're using their time first off and where their time may be less productive.
Setting limits and routines. It is important to stave off bad habits by setting limits and establishing routines. Establishing social media free hours and setting a time aside to both unplug and encourage healthy electronic use is key. An example of social media free hours could include, but are not limited to, the new Tech Free Tuesday trend. Most phones also have the ability to monitor how much social media and screen time they are using. Another great way to reduce social media stress is by encouraging them not to respond immediately to all electronic messages.
And then good distractions. So this can be one of the simplest techniques for rapid stress relief, finding ways to distract your mind from the concerning events. As we get stressed out, our attention tends to narrow and focus solely on what is perceived as threatening. So distraction techniques can work by just interrupting that process and thinking of something else. And it really helps if the activities are interesting and absorbing to the individual person rather than just time occupiers. Some examples could be the things you see on this slide, the different creative or physical outlets, from listening to music, playing sports, doing something artistic.
Peace and relaxation. Help your child find time for relaxation. Try taking a walk, sitting in silence, reading, listening to music, playing with the family pet, or doing family board game nights. Teens can easily become overwhelmed by the amount of stimuli they encounter on a daily basis, and we all relax in different ways, so it's essential to find what works for your child. During Humankind Day, our counseling staff has hosted a variety of sessions surrounding stress management. We have done several activities with the students. Some of those have included making stress balls out of balloons, making slime, and then we add some essential oils to it, doing origamis. These are all activities that you can also do at home with your teen.
Knowing what you can and cannot control. So we'll spend a lot of time with students to help them realize that some of the stressors just are simply outside of their control, and ultimately what they have a choice on is how they're going to respond to it. So letting go of worries and mistakes is a vital skill to learn. Some ways to do that would be to encourage your teen to see the positives. And then there's some different techniques. So for students who may do their best thinking creatively, making a worry box and then having the student write stressors and place them in that box to essentially let go of those. And this can help teens who might have difficulty sleeping at night due to some of the stress on their mind. Also, another technique could be for students who might do their best thinking while moving. Encourage them to do what's called like a walking mind sweep. So go outside, take a walk, bring a notepad, and then if something crosses their mind, write it down, get it out on paper. Also, acknowledging a list of strengths and goals that they've obtained or that they're working towards can also help with that positive mindset.
And last but not least, it's important to be a good role model. It's no surprise that people are busier than ever. Learning to manage stress can give you the perspective, patience, and energy needed for your teens to see how to manage stress as well. While stress presents itself differently to you than to your child, both of you may be dealing with stress. Lean on each other and fellow parents. Acknowledge your personal successes with managing stress so your teen can share in that positivity. Oftentimes, we hear students not wanting to add to their parents' stress by talking about their problems too. Let your teen know it's okay to talk about stress by talking about your own and inviting them to share too. Tell them how you plan to manage and follow through with that plan. And finally, definitely give yourself credit. Teenage years are stressful, and we know that you're doing the best you can. We want you guys to be able to help yourself to any coffee, donuts. Our plan is that Mrs. Paranovic is going to be up here on the right side of the stage, and I'm going to be on the left side of the stage. That way, feel free to mingle with us and talk, what brought you here today. Ask questions as you have them about your child, and we just kind of want to hang out and have coffee with us. So thank you.